everybody is invaluable and everybody needs to feel invaluable. Because if I have a goal scorer in soccer that's scoring 10 goals every game, but I have a goalkeeper that's giving up 11, we lose every game. So it's bringing everyone together, recognizing their uniqueness, but giving them the tools to understand how important they are.
So delighted and excited today. I am speaking to one of my best buds, just a really fantastic, all around fantastic gentleman that I had the pleasure of meeting. It's going on almost 2 years now, Mr. Dan Dan Metcalfe of 60 Up. And I am so delighted he's here. Dan he just has an incredible rap sheet when it comes to the things he's accomplished. So I want to give you a little bit of background about him, but first and foremost, I'd like to welcome Dan and all of our listeners to our inaugural, the Optimized Workplace podcast. So this is our inaugural podcast, Dan. So you are our first invitee, and I'm so delighted that you're here. Thank you so very much.
Well, it's an absolute honor to be here with you. And again, when you were introduced to me, I'm looking around saying, who is this guy Brian's talking about? But I would throw that right back at you and say, it's my honor and pleasure to be here with you.
Fantastic. Well, before we go talking too much, again, welcome all our listeners to the Optimized Workplace, where we talk about all things workplace and well-being to really make you and your workplace shine. So it is my absolute honor and privilege to introduce our first guest and a really special person that I believe is going to impact the world even larger with what he's got going on, as though he hasn't done that already. And his name is Dan Metcalfe of 60 Up. Let me tell you a little bit about Dan, because I've known him and I've seen different things that he's done, but I had no idea until I told him, send me your bio so I can introduce you properly, that I knew what rap sheet he had. So I'm going to tell you just a couple of things about Dan. And then as we get into the course of the conversation, I'm telling you, it's going to blow your mind, the things that he has done and the people he's touched. So first of all, Dan is an actor, producer, director, and now CEO of 60 Up. He has worked with, in his acting career and producing career, the likes of these names, which I know you know well: Robert Duvall, Will Ferrell, Amanda Burns. And for those of you who love Survivor and The Amazing Race like I do, Mr. Mark Burnett, which he had the pleasure of doing a documentary with. So Dan is quite accomplished. He's worked in over 100 productions as an actor, producer, director, and host, and worked with some amazing creative teams. But the reason I invited him on the Optimized Workplace today is because of this special story. So take a listen to this. Dan stepped into the business world launching his own products, selling worldwide, appearing on QVC, and having top-selling soccer skill DVDs before e-commerce ever existed. Dan opened a world-renowned gym in Los Angeles, training top athletes, which we share well. I don't think you know that, Dan, but that's how I started my career, training professional athletes, as I was a former track and field athlete myself, where he met Bob Eubanks. You guys know that name well, right? Bob Eubanks. Together, they worked on producing entertainment projects, but their greatest venture was the launch of 60 Up, which I can't wait for him to show us and tell us about today, which is a balance system that changed not only Bob's life, but the lives of thousands of persons worldwide. When they launched this equipment, get this, guys, they broke the $10 million mark in the first year. That's how amazing it was. And since then, Dan has gone on to learn much about business, challenges, pivoting, and all of that, always mastering the mindset of a champion. Prior to 60 and Up, Dan was one of the top soccer coaches in the USA, working as a head coach in the Olympic development team and program. And he also opened a nonprofit soccer organization for youth that has become number one in the nation. So I'm just going to pause there because, again, I could talk for the next 20 minutes about his background. But again, one of the things that's really exciting to me and to welcome Dan is that we share the passion about health and wellness. And because he's walked so many other lives prior to really focusing in on this as a CEO, he really understands what it means to corral and encourage and build culture and people around a specific mindset, and that is to win. So with all that, welcome again, Dan.
Lovely to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me to the inaugural podcast that you're doing and the launch of, again, I'm sure, a very, very successful venture that you're on.
Fantastic. So I really want to get into this conversation around 60 Up. You and I met and we talked briefly about it because we were, looking to, and we are still looking to do some work together in collaborations with some of our clients with 60 and up. But for the sake of our listeners today, tell them, what is 60 up and what does it do? Like, how did you even get into this?
Well, let me go back just really quickly. And this can be the short version of the story because we've only got 3 hours. So I met Bob Eubanks, 79 years old. Everyone knows Bob from the Newlywed Game, or he hosted the Rose Parade for 38 years. And Bob was having problems. I had actually written a movie. We're going to Netflix. We're presenting to Netflix. And Bob couldn't even get out of the chair at the end of the meeting. So I'm driving home and I said, Bob, what's going on? He goes, well, I'm working out 3 times a week. And he told me what he was doing. And I felt they were under challenging his body to make him stronger. So I said, let me train you. He knew I was one of the toughest trainers around and shied away very quickly, thinking that I would break him. But as you know, Fran, a great trainer is not pushing to the highest level. It's pushing to their highest level. It's helping people expand. So I brought Bob in, started training with him. And within 2 minutes, I knew I was doing everything wrong. It changed my world, and it changed the world of everyone I changed, from professional athletes to college athletes to regular athletes. We're all an athlete inside, right? Everyone's got that athlete side.
Absolutely.
I realized the difference was the brain. The problem was never the body, it's the brain. And this kind of crossed over into business as well, that about 80 to 90% of performance is your mental training, not your physical training. You'll know this as an athlete, Fran.
Totally agree. It's all about your mental acuity, your focus, how you can put away the distraction so you can really feature a point in and focus on what you're trying to do and accomplish.
Yeah, mindset ultimately, right? And then what are you willing to do to achieve that? So when it came to balance, the 60 up is based on balance training, because if you don't have balance, and I'm talking about physically right now, and then we'll get into balance in business. But if you don't get balanced in your body, you can't move with confidence. Fear sets in, and we know that fear freezes, right? It starts with an F for a reason. That nasty F word, fear and freeze. And so I had to retrain Bob's brain to trust himself by tapping back into the neurological system and doing exercises that actually excite it. We know dopamine is an exciting drug as far as when it's released, we feel good. And most times we work out or do exercise or do some sort of competition that we're not competent in yet. Yeah. We have a fear and a resistance. So that's how it came about. It was all about brain training, which luckily covers every aspect of life.
That's fantastic. So 60 Up, you all founded this organization when?
I created the product back in 2017, the end of 2017.
Okay.
And what happened was Bob was 79 years old. He couldn't walk up and down stairs. He couldn't get in and out of a car. He would fall, or that shuffle along the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And in 3 weeks, by training the brain to body through the neurological system, he was at 6 miles an hour on a treadmill in less than 3 weeks. So
wow.
It's been a phenomenal journey. And since then, we've sold to tens of thousands of people across America with unbelievable results.
That is fantastic. I think it's amazing that, you were able to tap in not only to the physicality and the mental acuity, but also how the brain really does parlay and guide and direct. I mean, we all know that, right? On a subconscious level, but I think consciously we're not thinking that. And that's, I remember back in the day when we talked a lot about mind-body connection, right? Back in the 90s, not to date myself, but, when I started in this business, and that is such a huge part of it. But it's not until I think this last 5, maybe 7 years, people have really started to catch up with it and recognize that. So, as you talked about Bob Eubanks, for many of our podcast listeners, they might not know who that is, right? That may be a bit older than them. So who does 60 and up really benefit? Like, who's it good for? Is it only good for the aging population, or can 20, 30 somethings use it?
Well, I will tell you that we have Olympic athletes that are using it. We have world record holders, gold medalists. We have college athletes. It's good for everybody. See, when a baby is born, it doesn't know how to balance. Mm-hmm. And you don't take a baby to the gym to learn how to balance and find their center and engage the core. What we have is the proprioceptive connection through the cerebellum at the back of the brain is engaging in pressure point changes and knowing how to adjust to that. And so as much as the initial concept was Let's help seniors that are having falling problems, because it's the number one problem in the world for seniors.
Yes.
We began to realize that professional athletes, everyday people, if they don't continue to work the neurological system of feel, they'll actually not only lose their physical ability, but the brain changes. You talk about how we understand more about the brain now than we ever have before. The miracle is in all of us to be excellent. We were born to be great. We were born to succeed. We were born to heal. We were born to learn. And that's why, as you so correctly say, the brain power is unbelievable in everything we do. So we are for everybody that wants to excel, starting from the brain out.
Okay. So I want to get into this conversation around mental health, because for many people who, may be listening to this conversation and saying, look, I'm not an athlete. I barely played soccer in high school. So that's not me. I think there's a disconnect I think there's an athlete. My personal feelings is there's an athlete in everyone. You're an athlete of your life, depending on what you're trying to pursue, right? Person, place, thing, work, social, what have you. You're always an athlete. It's a matter of fine tuning that in and applying the same principles in other walks of your life. So for those who are, kind of coming at it from the standpoint, well, how does this parlay into my workplace or into my work life? First off, I would love you to do a demonstration of 60 up.
Sure,
and I'll kind of walk us through what it looks like, how it really works. And then I want to talk about this conversation around mental health, because I think that's a huge issue. And to your point, brain health is all about mental health, right? A lot of people are so concerned about, just being overwhelmed, and the depression that we've seen, and the people who are feeling, that remote overwhelm because they can't socialize and they're not with other people. How can something like 60 up help that? And how does it help offset that mental health issue that we're seeing today?
Sure, absolutely. Again, it comes down to mindset and information that we're feeding ourselves in the brain, and not being contaminated by outside forces that don't have our best interest. And I don't mean that in any other way, apart from what are we doing with self-love to look after ourselves. So let me jump on the 60 up and take you through just a couple of little things.
And now, as you're doing this, Dan, I'm going to give everybody a setup so those of you who are listening who can't actually see Dan, his background, his office it speaks athleticism. So do not be intimidated. I'm not intimidated, even though I've never won a gold medal, but I'm still not intimidated because I won plenty of them in high school. Thank you very much. But he's got gold medals to the right, other trophies. Then behind him, he's got some sort. Oh, I guess is that your soccer uniform? I guess from when you played?
This was one of my professional players that I found at the age of 15 in LA, didn't have any future, and was able to take him under my wing. And he ended up becoming the youngest non-college draft into the MLS, going over and playing in Europe. And he's incredibly successful. He's just retired, but he had the most amazing career from an immigrant family that had the mother, the father, the brother, the wife, and him all living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And now the success is unbelievable.
Oh my gosh. How do you pronounce the name?
It's Movsisyan. This was his very first professional game jersey he wore. He sent it to me as a thank you.
I love it. I love it. And so behind Dan, besides that, is just this wall of affectations, I would call it. Not that he's not a prideful person or he's trying to flex, but let me tell you, if you intimidate easy, you don't want to see the back of this room. So Dan, tell us about 60 Up. Tell us about the apparatus. How does it work? And how can it, again, be amenable for someone in a work-life situation, especially working at home or working in the office?
Sure. So 60 Up is actually a balance board that's very wide. It's about 35 inches wide. It has handles that are built into it for a safety feeding, so it's not overwhelming as a challenge. But think about when you were born. When you cried or you weren't feeling good, your parent would pick you up and they would rock you. Think about when you want to relax in the evening, especially in the, back in the 60s, 50s, people would get in rocking chairs and they'd rock because it makes you feel good. It brings a calm and a warmth to your everyday activity. So what we're doing right now is just rocking side to side. Now, the beautiful thing is the mind and the brain are two separate entities. They're not the same thing. So what I'm doing is I'm engaging the brain while I'm talking. I'm not thinking about rocking. My brain is letting me rock while I'm talking to you. For example, you're walking down the street, you look in a shop window, you see a beautiful purse in there, you go, oh, I like that. But you're still walking, probably to the door to go in and buy it, but you're still walking. And as you're doing that, you're not thinking about your balance. You're building the brain neural connections from the furthest extremity, from the head all the way down to the feet.
I love that. So for those of you who didn't catch all of that, basic analogy, people that walk down the street and you're reading messages off your iPhone, or you're reading a book. In DC, that happens a lot. Somebody actually ran and walked into a manhole, believe it or not, because they were so engrossed in the book that they were reading, they didn't see the manhole and walked right into it and fell 6 feet down. So the brain, as he just said, the brain and the mind can work simultaneously together, even though they're doing two different functions. That's brain health. Keep going, Dan.
So it's very stable. The first thing when I designed this, I wanted it extremely safe for anybody to get on. Remember, originally, this was created for seniors that had balance issues. And again, we go back to the balance issue is the brain, not the body, but you can naturally strengthen. So once we discovered that it was better or just as effective for athletes and kids, we've got kids that have a genesis of the corpus callosum. This is where the brain wasn't fully functioned in the womb. Then they suffer from balance issues. This helps the brain become connected. Now, as much as it's an exercise piece of equipment, it wasn't built for exercise. It's built for wellness. Wellness covers mental health. So imagine this. When we're kids and we want to have fun, and fun should be part of every workplace, we want to have something that's rewarding. We want to have something that's subconscious that we're doing. I'm rocking here. I'm subconsciously doing it, but it feels good. It releases again, dopamine, the endorphins that allow you to understand exactly how it feels good to move. We were born to move. And I'll go back to your point where not everyone thinks they're an athlete. What is the definition of an athlete? It's someone that moves. The level of the athlete is the speed that they move or jump or whatever the event is. So all of us are athletes. And we've always got that feeling in there of greatness when we do something a little bit better than we normally do.
Absolutely. So for you sports fans out there, that basically means that if you sit on an NBA winning team or a Super Bowl winning team, but you never play in the game, you still get the ring. So you're still an athlete as far as that team is concerned. So to Dan's point, we're all athletes. If you're moving, you're an athlete. It's maybe different stages, different levels, but you're an athlete. So think about that when it comes to training yourself physically as well as mentally. Keep going, Dan.
The board was created to allow we've got over 300 different foot placement exercises in here for challenges, right? We love to feel that we've accomplished something. And so when we look at the fun, you want to have it rewarding. It wants to be subconscious. You're doing something. You want to do an activity, something that's moving. And we'll get into this when I get off the board. We want to have something that has a time frame or a competition about it. Mm-hmm. So by bringing the 60 up and putting it into a workplace, we found instead of people coming down and just sitting around in their break time or really not really doing anything that changes the environment that they just left for 15-minute break to come back, they now jump on a board. They feel good. They're challenging. Other people come in. It's like a kid. When we put this around kids jump on it and rock on it for hours with different foot placements, changing the angle, front to back, side to side. Mm-hmm. You put a couple in there and suddenly you get a couple of different work friends or people who don't even know each other. They step on it and start challenging each other. It becomes fun. It's a change of environment in a very quick, short time before they go back to the work. And we know the brain has to rest like every muscle does after exercise. So when you're working for 8 hours, you need to have a change that allows the working part of the brain to have that break.
Yeah. So for those of you who can't see, again, Dan is on think of a balance board, but it has two handles on it as if you were skiing, right? Down a slope. So you can use the handles to hold on as you're balancing. And the better you get with, there he goes. He's doing a little ski move. And the better or faster. The better you get with it, then the more you can let go and kind of challenge yourself and things like that. You could even have this in a class setting. What I think this would be great for is for my customers out there who are bringing, treadmill desks in or standing desks in. You can even have in one of these balance boards, actually a team room where you have maybe 5 or 10 balance boards and hold a meeting there. Because for those people who do a lot of meetings, lots of trainings, people fall asleep, bore. This is an active way to engage your physicality, your mental awareness, your brain, as well as the engagement of conversation. Because we've been talking the whole time he's been on this board. And I think he's been on about 12, 15 minutes. So this is a fantastic piece. For those of you who are listening, I highly invite you to go over to our YouTube page, watch this video segment because it was really, really great. So let's segue that point, Dan, into more on that mental health discussion. You're a thought leader. You've been in the industry for quite some time. As you've seen the trends, right? We see the trends come and go. They have for decades. What do you think the biggest impact as we're looking at work opening back up, remote workers and hybrid workers and companies really trying to parlay between the two and find that? What do you think the biggest impact around health and wellness is and the biggest drivers as we move forward over the next 5 to 10 years?
I think what's happened, and I don't even want to say I think, what I've experienced and seen is the lack of consistency that used to be there, that people had a comfortable life. They had something, when I say comfortable life, they knew what it was from 9 to 5 or whatever their hours were. There wasn't this constant flux and change in not knowing what the future was. And the only constant in life is change. And so we bring in the ability for people to be able to then say, okay, I may not know the future, but I've got the characteristic, I've got the quality, I've got the talent to adapt and to adjust to changes and maintain my highest level of excellence is, I think, the most important part of what we have to give to employees, to workers. And when I say that, I really mean the team. Mm-hmm. I have this philosophy, Fran, that you've heard the saying, you're only as weak, the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. A chain is only as strong as every link. And I don't believe in superstars. My nonprofit organization was called DMS 11, to the power of 11, because everybody is invaluable and everybody needs to feel invaluable. Because if I have a goal scorer in soccer that's scoring 10 goals every game, but I have a goalkeeper that's giving up 11, we lose every game. So it's bringing everyone together, recognizing their uniqueness, but giving them the tools to understand how important they are.
Wow, that's powerful and very rich, because I think it lends to the conversation to culture, right? And it kind of makes me think of the analogy. So I'm dating myself, but back in the day when I was first starting to teach classes, and you as the star instructor would be in the front of the class. And you've always got your first two rows of people who just want to show off. They really want to be you, right? Like they don't need an instructor. Just let me do it. But then you've got that person in the far right or the far left that barely made it. They can't really keep up. They kind of want to hide. They don't think they're important enough. And they feel like they don't fit in. They feel unworthy, the low confidence, low self-esteem, all those pieces. And actually, I think that's what's showing up in workplaces today, as you said, around culture, is in the mental health breakdown, is those people who, they're not the shining stars. They don't get all the awards and the accolades. They're not called out on a regular basis, but they are part of the cog because they are fulfilling some role or task, or they wouldn't be with the organization anymore. And it is so vital that we don't go off and leave those folks. It is so vital that we figure out, what are the tools or the nuances or the touch points that you need so we can bring you along, because you're part of the team as well. So I think that's huge, hugely important. What are you excited about as you move forward and see where things are going with that point around culture, and just the fact that companies are really now getting that work-life balance isn't a buzzword, it's real. What are you super excited about going forward in the next year?
I'm really excited about opportunities. I think there's so many opportunities out there for the individual. And I think it's down to the leaders. And when I say the leaders, it may be the owners, it may be the project managers, it could be the corporation itself, to embrace people as individuals that have talent that are waiting to burst out. We were always taught, stay in the box, right? This is we were destroyed by 18. We're told this is who you have to be and this is what you've got to do. And I think the time of stepping away from the environment and being left at home got people to really think about themselves. I look at it, Fran, that it's up to the leaders to change their perspective on who's working for them and change it to who's working with them. See, I have this thing, the greatest leaders don't have the most followers. The greatest leaders are the ones that create the most leaders. And that's what, if you start doing that within your own company or within your own environment, and you encourage creativity, you're turning around a mindset of people scared to step out of line because they'd lose their position or job, their livelihood. And so I'm really excited about opportunities that are out there for everybody, not the worker, not the leader. We're talking about community, culture, and the actual world itself.
I love it. I love it. You're taking one of my buzzwords, optimization, right? So you're optimizing people and optimizing culture, which is so, so critical, I think, these days as we do move forward. So as we kind of move towards our close, Dan, I'm curious, are there any passion projects that are coming up for you? I mean, you've done so many different things and moved in so many different directions. I'm so curious. I was thinking as I was preparing for our conversation today, how does Dan think about bringing in what he's done and what he has accomplished with the nuances of what he's doing or where he's moving forward? So are there any passion projects on the horizon for you?
That could be the start of a whole new podcast here, Fran. I'm always moving. I'm always creative. My mind gets excited. I call myself a dream builder. I've been able to help many, many people progress in life, whether it's businesses or whether it's individually. And so I personally can't rest. So I'm going to be going out I've already speak on the inspirational speaker circuit. So I'm going to be advancing that, working on a TED talk coming up. And then I have another product that I'm so excited about that's in the works. I can't say anything right now. It's going to be a massive launch where it's just going to blast out there, that will actually change the lives of people, as 60 Up has done. And again, 60 Up still stays a passion project as well as a business project, because it was created to help one person. It was never created to sell. It was just created to help Bob, but he had so much success. Other celebrities, Shirley MacLaine, always that were saying, Dan, can you come and train us? I did it for fun. I did it to help people. I didn't get paid for doing it. And so I love the expansion idea that you're talking about, Fran, of how do we make this for everybody that can get it into their business, they're not getting into the business to get it in there. How can it impact their work? Because I want to finish with one really quick story if I can. The English national soccer team were playing in the World Cup down in South Africa, and they got a hotel well away from everywhere so that the players could rest in between games. What did they do in between games? They went back and sat on video games and played video games all day long, resting their legs because they're soccer players, they got to run. England played one of the most boring, worst World Cups they've ever appeared in because mentally they were tired. See, when you're playing a game, when you're sitting there working every day on the same thing, the mind is multitasking. You can think of something. I'm talking to you, Fran, and I could still be thinking, I'm not, but I could be thinking, I wonder what I got for lunch today. Right? Because we multitask. That tires the brain. So if we can impact the workplace, the workforce, to make the workers feel good, to make the managers engage with the workers at the same level because we're doing a fun activity, to have challenges, to laugh, to have that fun. I know 6-7 isn't the only thing that can do it. There's many things. But if we can change the mindset to bring fun, short, quick activities while the brain is resting and take it away from the stress when they go back to work, and we talked about, again, the 80% performance. If you want higher performance, don't drag it for long periods of time. Change what you're doing and have fun. Don't engage the brain. So that's really my wrap up of how I feel. And I love what you're doing, Fran. The mental approach, there's not enough people that, leading as you are in that mental approach of change, because it doesn't just affect the workday, it affects your home life. And we need more love, care, and unity in this world.
Powerful. Powerful. I think what I'm walking away with, that last piece that you said, taking those short snack bites with your mental health will amplify your energy. That is so incredible. And I hope everyone listening is taking that away, and find ways to do that for yourself and spread it out to your team. And that will truly unify. I think that will unify teams. I think it will unify cultures, but it will also make people feel more happy and resilient and balanced. So thank you for that, Dan. That was powerful. powerful. Now, before we completely wrap, I want to make sure that our listeners know how to get a hold of you, how to get in touch with you. And also for those, we have listeners across the spectrum, right? Federal clients, commercial, but we also have a lot of consumers that have followed Aero Bodies for quite a number of years because we are people, process, and place. So we work in really impacting engagement and strategy and people in lots of different ways. How can they get in touch with you? But more importantly, who's an ideal partner or potential customer for you for something like 60 Up?
The number one thing that I say about any potential partner or customer is they got to have a dream. If you don't have a goal, if you don't have a dream, something you want to achieve, you won't take the steps to change your life. I say the goal has to be greater than the effort it takes to achieve it. Because at any point in life, if we're not passionate about the end result, we'll stop along the journey. So get a dream, be willing to do the work. And I don't care. Age to me is irrelevant. I've got people that are 100 years old that are using this, that are thriving better than they were when they were 80. And at the same time, It all comes down to your mindset. So the perfect partner who it will work for, someone that dreams better in life, more balance mentally and physically to be able to go and do the things you want to do, but also people that are forward thinkers. They're not stuck in the past. They realize we've always, since the beginning of mankind, we've had a brain. The greatest brains in the world don't use more than about 7% of the power of the brain. So if you're stuck in the past, you're still thinking in the old way. But science, the medical world, real life proof shows that change your mindset to the power of the brain. And it's incredible what you can do. So if you believe in the future and you want to have a better future and you're willing to work for it, that's who's the perfect person for 60 Up.
All right, fantastic. And how do they?
They can go to 60up.com, which is the website that we have. It's continuing to evolve. We're very excited about the new steps that are going through. Or they can contact me directly, either through Facebook, which is, I have my Dan Metcalfe there. That's DANMETCALF with an E on the end, because it's there.
E for extra. Exciting.
I was saying excellent. Okay.
Energy.
That's you. And then obviously I'm on LinkedIn, and then they can actually contact me if they want to go to customer success at 60up.com. That's customer success at the number 60, the letters UP.com, and get hold of me. But again, if you want to go to my social media network, then you can contact me directly through there as well.
Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, Mr. Dan Metcalfe. Give it up. Give it up. Give it up. This has been a phenomenal conversation. You didn't disappoint. I knew that you wouldn't. We can talk all day. In fact, we will be talking all day next month when we see each other in San Diego. Dan and I are a member of the same CEO group. So I love what he's doing and look forward to Aero Bodies collaborating with 60 Up in the future for our federal sector, because I think he has an incredible product that I think can be very helpful, not just to civilian, but also to those who support the government in many different ways. So Dan, we'll be talking about that in the future.
Can I just add that we've donated a lot of these units to the wounded veterans, and so the Veterans Affairs, the Veterans Association, we love them, and so we're very much appreciating of what they've gifted us with freedom, in America and throughout the world. In England, every country has people that have suffered for the good of the people, and so I want to say as well, I love what you're doing, Fran. It's an honor and a privilege, and I'm excited to be part of your journey moving forward, even if I'm sitting back as a spectator watching that player go to work.
Hey, watch out. We got a lot going on over here. But we're super excited. Thank you again, Dan. This has been a fantastic conversation. But thank you for our listeners for being with us. And make sure that you visit us on YouTube to see this exciting episode as well. And remember, optimizing your workplace takes one step at a time. So dream big, but get started. Thanks again, everyone.